Alright guys, welcome to my channel. How's it all going for you? I am Crypto Tyke. Well, just talking about things that are going on with crypto obviously today, and mainly a waiting game just to see what happens with Bitcoin. I think is what the big call is. Will Bitcoin push on through 125 and then push out to the 130s? That's a big question because, as we know with crypto, everything follows what Bitcoin does. So Bitcoin moves first, then your Ethereum, Solana's, and as it stands, BNB keeps going on and on. And that is just what we're waiting for. And then we can declare Uptober to have begun. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because obviously we're all wanting to see what happens with our altcoins. So what has been happening is the question, and some have been moving more than others. Now I know I've noticed in the comments that a couple of people took my advice to sell their Casper and they moved into Zcash and seem to be doing very nicely from it. Now, with that, I think possibly a bit too late to be getting in now, so it's a little bit too risky for my, how I feel. But I'm glad people took that advice, because what happens is you get stuck in a rut sometimes where you're holding on to something, hoping it's going to skyrocket, and it's just not moving. And sometimes in the interim, it's a good time to grab some profits from something else that is moving. And that is precisely what the couple of people who have mentioned it in my comments have done with Zcash. But I think my key thing that I can say is make sure you're taking profits, because the price, it is a bit kind of suspicious, where it could push on, but it could equally fall as fast. So just be aware of that. If you've got that, might be a good time to cream some profits out of it. You don't have to sell it all, obviously. Just maybe a smart DCA moment of just making sure you've locked something in, and that frees up some liquidity for anything that might be ready to push on in this Q4 move to the next level. But good on you for having that bravery to do that. I'm not necessarily telling people to sell all the Casper or anything. I'm just saying look pragmatically at things, and that you can make, even if you wanted to buy back into Casper, you could buy more Casper by making some profits in the short term. So that's what I did, like I said, back about over a month ago now, and then I have managed to buy back in at a much lower price, lower sevens, and my position in Casper looks a lot better. The idea of being in crypto is to make money, not to have it sat around doing nothing, and sometimes making these little tweaks, because you can be confident it's not going to move for a little while, and in the meantime you can gain on something that is making signs that it's going to break out. And people jumped on Zcash. I think it's probably where they were when they sold Casper will have been a 3 or 4x return, possibly touching on 5x. I'm not sure it's quite to that point, but a good bit of business done. And that's what a little bit of bravery does for you. It's too easy to get caught up in traps, psychological traps. Now, this is a big part of what I do is psychology. So I understand the psychological traps. I understand what it's like to be in something that's not moving, that you've got confidence and you're worried that the moment you sell it, it's going to break out and go to the moon. And in reality, that's not how things work. Sometimes it might happen. That's always a risk. But at the same time, if it does make that dramatic move, bear in mind that you don't have to. If things are breaking out and you're confident they are, it's nothing stopping you buying in a little bit higher. You're still going to ride it pretty much just as far as you would have done anyway. And that brings me on to Injective. Now, I called somebody a thick in the comments, and that's because it's a type of person who's comes in. If you're going to call me a noob and think you know it all, and you know what I've bought when you don't, and you understand my strategies, it tells me you're a thick. So just by the way you conduct yourself, I can spot them a mile off. And when somebody is telling me that, well, you're stupid, Injective's going to $75. Well, since October the 1st, when I sold Injective, it's barely moved. It's slightly above, we're talking a few pence above what I sold it at. In the interim, I bought Solana, Ethereum, BNB, a bit of Casper while it was cheap, Aptos. So all of them are well outperforming, as I expected, Injective to perform in that interim. Now, if I stopped right now, I could sell those and rotate back into Injective. It's that simple. And I'd have a tidy little profit and be able to buy even more Injective as a result of my move. So it's not that fucking stupid, is it? That's why I called him a thick, because it's like he doesn't understand the bigger picture. And he's so certain that it's going to $75. You don't know that. It could do. And I said in my video that was part of the risk. But I didn't expect it to happen that soon. So in the meantime, I'm making money work for me. Should I see signs of Injective looking like breaking out and the hype starting to go, I might buy back in. But in the meantime, Chainlink has just as much chance of breaking out and doing that as Injective. So I had, and part of that, my reasoning as well behind selling Injective was that I've got a few like that already. So I didn't want to be overloaded in Injective, which I was. So I trimmed that position. Well, I sold that one and moved it onto those so I could maximise profits, which is exactly what's happening. Obviously, I'm just waiting for Chainlink to move again, and Avax, I'm lower on Avax than I was before because I did take profits on that. They have another chance of taking a leg up. Now, as for buying stuff that hasn't moved, it's better to buy stuff that is moving, because if you look at the majority of alts out there, the ones that are doing nothing will continue to do nothing. Simple as that. It's how things work, and especially with there being more and more altcoins. It's how it goes. But anyway, I find it a good rule of thumb that if people like that, with that kind of attitude, are talking you down and giving you shit, it's usually a good sign that you're doing the right thing. So I'm happy with that. So I'm pretty much locked in for the upcoming months. Obviously, I'm waiting for new money to come in, a bit more liquidity, which is how we all work, most of us. We have to wait each month for new liquidity to come in that we can put into crypto. But I'm happy with the way things are balanced. I don't need to do any more tinkering, so to speak. And what I will be doing then is waiting on Ethereum and Solana and BNB, see what kind of figures they're putting in, and then I'll have to look at starting to take profits, because it's important to have exit plans. And again, this is about carefully monitoring what's going on as well, because I want to maximize it. So I'll start DCAing out of those at some point, and I'll look at what hasn't taken off yet or is about to take off and rotate those profits into those ones to try and squeeze as much as possible out of the money that I have available, which I think is a sensible approach. We all know what moves first. We all know the mid caps and then lower caps last of all follow. This is why it's important to sort of have an understanding of the latest news with what's going on with the crypto you hold, and understanding what they do and what role they play and what narratives they're in, and seeing how strong those narratives are. I'm not a financial advisor, and none of this is financial advice. But what I'm saying is you can only position things the best that you can. Now, you might get a load of noise from people who will chat shit, but the more confident they are in what they're saying, the less likely they are to be right. Trust me. That is life the world over. Those with the most confidence in what they're saying are the people who are most likely to be wrong. People like that, very few of them make big money. Most of them end up chasing shadows and being too late or too early and selling that and moving on because they're getting impatient. It's people like that the people who make it are just the lucky ones. It's just luck. It's just a gamble. And to a point, so is what you're putting your money on with crypto. However, you're trying to make judgment calls on what you think will make the most profit and which will be. Sometimes you have to. I mean, I think with people who watch my channel, it'll be a certain type of person who also weighs up risk as well, and it's looking at, for instance, back with Injective, there was a point, and Casper as well to a very big degree actually. Casper, Injective, I'm looking at them, looking at where they are on the risk factor of things. You know, you're looking at how much risk there is and how much of my portfolio is dedicated to it, and I'm looking at it going, actually I could pile it into that, shave a lot of that off, put it into less risky, more certain gainers. They might not have the same potential for 10x's, 8x's or whatever, but they might put in a solid amount of profit at the end of the day because they are going to lead the way. So I want to weight part of my portfolio like that. It's all about your own strategies. And if you want to chase moons, that's great. You know, it could pay off, you know, but it's kind of like the markets. Mine's what I call a maturer, more pragmatic approach. I understand from experience in business and other things and life in general that most of the time what you plan doesn't happen. It's usually the plan B or plan C that comes off. So always have a plan B and plan C. Don't just put everything into one thing, because 90% of the time it ain't going to work out like you expect it to work out. And those people who understand that and are big enough to say to themselves, look, I'm not going to be right all the time here, so I've got to plan for not being right as well. Those are the people who are the smartest people, who will get best results long term. Just because somebody might go, oh, look, I put all my money on this and it mooned. It's like, one, they're probably bullshitting, but two, because funnily enough, bullshitting something they do a lot of as well. And two, they're probably not telling you the whole truth, and it would just look, which we encounter from time to time in our lives. But as a long-term strategy, they're probably not going to do that great, and they'll be just as prone to blowing all that money that they've made or not cashing out the profits and them being unrealised. So they're never as well off as you might think they are. That's just the nature of some of the bullshit people like to put out about themselves, and it usually comes from the same personality types. And I can see it a mile off in people because of my life experience and psychology experience, so I can spot it very quickly. And when those people tend to say things, I'm like, right, fucking brilliant, they're talking me down. That means I must be doing the right thing. Because I'm doing the opposite to them, basically. Anyway, not much else to report, really. Like I say, it's just a waiting game. I've got everything. I'm happy with where everything is for the moment. I am flexible, and I do stay flexible all the time for any changes where there might be something that I've missed. As things stand, I'm happy where my portfolio is balanced overall, and that is a key thing to remember. Look at your portfolios. Is it well balanced? Is the risk tolerance satisfactory for you? We've all got different risk tolerances, we've all got different strategies, and it's just down to you to decide. You know, I can only talk about my experience and how I do things, and in time we'll see how well I progress. It's part of the fun of this channel, part of the journey. You know, if I'm not chasing moons, I am sometimes putting bits in areas where I think possibly, but I don't want to get overloaded with chasing the dream, otherwise you end up losing out altogether. It's all about the bigger picture. So we'll see what happens with Bitcoin, whether it does get through that $130 level that I'm looking for, and that will start to push up, you know, the rest of the market as well. And over the coming months, we'll start to have a better idea. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please do, because it really, really helps. And the people who've subscribed so far, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've been impressed with the speed of it, actually. It's really humbling. And hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm, gets it seen by more people. And let me know, are you happy with where you are right now? Are you happy with your portfolio? Are you looking at any ways to improve your odds of maximising profits, let me know in the comments. I will catch you later, guys, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.